Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link, and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at YOLO_app. I'm eagerly looking forward to all your submissions right after this class.
Hey there, kids. How are you doing? Welcome to today's class. Today is a fresh day where we're going to go ahead and talk about a lot of, things related to cars. So this class is all about cars, and I am so glad to have you here. Now, before we actually get started with what we need for today's class, as well as everything that we're actually going to go ahead and talk about, let's talk a little bit about the certificate program as well as your submissions. So first thing to do with your certificate program, do not go ahead and miss any of your classes. That is, for example, this GK course is of 4 classes. Don't go ahead and miss any of your classes. Secondly, don't go ahead and miss any of your submissions. I want you to go ahead and do your submission for each of the classes, because then it gives us sort of like a track record that you've gone ahead and attended all of the classes, plus you've gone ahead and done all of your submissions, making it super easy to go ahead and give you your certificate. Now, apart from that, I want to talk about your submissions in general. I want you to make it a point, I want you to make it a responsibility that you have to go ahead and make your submission irrespective of how you have done. Whether you've done a good job, whether you've done a bad job, whatever it is, I want you to go ahead and do your submission. The reason being, because if you go ahead and do your submission, then what will happen is we'll sort of get an idea of the progress you're making with every class. So whatever skill I'm going ahead and imparting in you in that class, seeing you go ahead and do your submissions give me sort of like an input or an insight in terms of what you're going ahead and learning and how you're learning it, how your progress is basically moving forward. So definitely make sure of that point. Now, let's go ahead and get started with today's class. Today's class, like you all know, is all about class. It's a general knowledge class with a little bit of art on the side. So, what we're going to be going ahead and doing is we're going to go ahead and move forward with our conversation from last class, which is all about bikes. And we're going to actually move on to cars in general. Now, in the last class, we actually sat down and spoke about how the wheel was invented. We spoke a little bit about how the bike was invented. We spoke a little bit about bicycles, and then we spoke about things like scooters, motorcycles, and things like that. Now, in today's class, what we're going to be basically focusing on is everything related to cars. So the timeline of things basically sort of falls in and out here and there. The bicycle, the part of the motorcycle, when the scooter was created, they sort of go simultaneously, but I'm sort of creating a timeline or an order in a way that you'll be able to understand better. So what we'll do is we'll be going ahead and drawing out, like, a few versions of the cars that were there over time, as well as we'll be going ahead and discussing everything in relation to that. And we'll be ending the class by discussing a little bit of or a few facts about cars in general. Now let's go ahead and first get started with the list of materials that you need for today's class. Today's class is going to be a little different in terms of your submission than your previous classes. In today's class, we're going to go ahead and do just the drawing of everything using a black marker, and all of your submission needs to be colored, or all of your work needs to be filled up with color later on as part of your homework that I want you to do as part of your submission. So you can use sketch pens, you can use crayons, whatever you like for the coloring part of it, but that's completely up to you. So let's go ahead and get started with the list of materials. So the first thing that you need for today's class is going to be a sheet of paper. So here you can go ahead and take a drawing book, sketchbook, whatever you have with you, a journal book, if you have probably an A4 size sheet of paper, if you have any loose drawing sheets of paper, all of them would absolutely work. Anything that you have with you will absolutely work. After that, the next thing that you'll need for today's class is going to be a pencil. You can go ahead and grab any pencil that you have with you, and you can go ahead and grab a set of sketch pens. Now for the sketch pens, obviously, like I mentioned, we'll be going ahead and using only a black marker for our drawing portion of today. But obviously you can go ahead and have the next set of sketch pens in order to color everything that we're going ahead and drawing, or you can also go ahead and opt for crayons. All of that will work perfectly well. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're actually going to go ahead and draw everything through the evolution of time in terms of cars. So before we actually get started with the first part of it, let me give you a little bit of an introduction to it. So like I mentioned in the last class, we were talking about the invention of the wheel, and then we were talking about bullock carts in general. Now, after the bullock cart, I was talking to you about how the bicycle was created, and then we went on to talking about motorcycles or motorbikes, and then we started talking about engines like scooters and things like that. Now, cars are very, very, very related to motorcycles or bikes or scooters, even though they seem unrelated, in the sense that basically everything that we discussed in last class is basically a two-wheeler. That is, there are only two wheels in it. But everything that we're discussing in today's class is going to have four wheels in it. So the ultimate basic part of it is that transportation in terms of cars and bikes both are based off of wheels. Now what happened earlier on with the evolution of the car is that they needed to figure out how to go ahead and create an engine or a motor or something that could self-sustain with the movement or the transport, that could go ahead and carry a lot more people. Now, when we were discussing about the bullock cart in the last class, we spoke about how they went ahead and took four wheels and added a plank onto it, and it was used to go ahead and carry like goods, materials, people, things like that. And you probably had an animal like a bullock, or you had horses or things like carriages and things like that, moving people all along. But what started happening was you obviously needed to have livestock or animal or things like that. So eventually what people wanted to go ahead and do was to create sort of like a motorized version of it. Now motorized version of it would basically have an engine or have a motor or have something to it in order to create that movement that was earlier done by humans themselves or by animals. So what actually happened was the first invention of the car was basically actually a steam car. So like a steam engine in terms of trains, the same technology was actually gone ahead and created with a steam car. So basically what happened was you would go ahead and have coal put in, and then you had the same concept of it being sort of flat with four wheels where people would sit in, and you put in the coal, and then there was basically used as fuel, and there was movement. That was one of the earlier inventions. But after time, one of the next inventions that came about was basically the three-wheeled car. Now this is very, very, very similar to an auto, and basically used to be sort of like a metal or a wooden structure, wherein there was a wheel right in the front, which is a smaller wheel, and there were two wheels in the back with sort of like a carriage. So you can imagine it to be sort of like an open carriage, which sort of had like a middle equipment, which was an electric sort of machine, or had some form of fuel system or some form of engine system that basically used to run. So people used to basically sit run this system, and then they could move forward. They also had sort of like a handle to hold and move ahead. So a very, very, very modern version of this three-wheeled transport that I'm talking about is basically the auto. So let's go ahead and actually draw it out so that you kind of get a similar idea of it. You kind of go ahead and understand what I am talking about. So here what you can do is you can go ahead and take your black color marker like I am doing so, and we can get started. What I'm doing is I'm going ahead and drawing the smaller wheel in the front like I mentioned. So I'm going ahead and drawing the front wheel, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw the back wheels. As you can see, very simple. Then I'm going to go ahead and complete the wheel out by going ahead and drawing two circles in the middle and double lining the back part as well. I'm going to do the same exact thing for the front wheel as well, wherein I'm going to go ahead and do a double line right at the center, and then I'm going to do a double line for the outside as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and draw all of the forks of the wheel in order to kind of make it look like a proper wheel. After which we'll go ahead and actually draw the platform at the bottom. This platform is basically the space where you can keep your legs or you can stand and things like that. So if you've ever gone ahead and looked at a carriage, it's a very, very similar concept, wherein the carriage was with wheels with a horse in front that kind of pulled people. So in this, what they did was they took the same ideology, the same concept, and added an engine in order to create a self-sustaining, without an animal or without a human being, sort of like a sitting way of basically moving around. So here you can see I went ahead and did the platform at the bottom. Now I'm going ahead and doing the movement part of it, so the steering part of it. It's sort of like a bicycle, and here you can see I'm going ahead and drawing the seat in the front and the seat at the back, sort of creating sort of like a chair concept where the people used to sit. Now right at the bottom over there was also like an inbuilt system wherein the motor of the vehicle was sort of put in, and there were different modes of fuel, whether it was coal, whether it was petrol, whether it was diesel, whether it was just simple crude oil. That was basically what was used. So here you can see it's like an uncovered auto, I would say, is basically the first invention that basically came about when it came to transportation as a car, which was self-sustaining after the steam version of it. Now, while you go ahead and actually continue drawing this, let's go ahead and talk about the next part of the evolution of the car. The evolution of the car from here on went to be more advanced, wherein the whole concept of a motor and a gear system basically came into play. This was basically invented by the company of Ford and Benz. They were the first innovators when it came to proper motorization of the car, and the version of the car they basically came up with is very, very similar looking to that of a modern Jeep. It's basically sort of like an open Jeep, I would say, is what they came about. Now this obviously had a very, very heavy base, wherein it had all of the equipment for a motor. They started using more refined oils like crude oil, petrol, things like that, in order to actually run the vehicle, as compared to what they were using earlier in terms of coal or electricity. At that point of time, electricity was very, very hard to get. Though we have electric cars right now, even though an invention also was made of the electric vehicle, at that point of time generating electricity was very hard at that point of time. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to go ahead and use natural resources of oils or crude oils, petrols, diesels, which was already found, which is really, really easy to kind of refine and run through engines, is what they were looking for. And what they came up was with this form of a open Jeep kind of structure. So that's what we're going to actually go ahead and draw next. So you can see I'm drawing sort of like an arrow, sort of indicating the evolution. Here, this was a four-wheeled transport. It was like a proper car. From the three wheel they actually moved on to the four wheeled part of it, and here you can see they had like many of the elements of a modern day car. So you have obviously the four wheels, you have sort of like the bumper part of it, which is basically the bottom sequence around the wheels. You basically have the bumper, which I'm going ahead and drawing right now. You have the bumper system. You also have the concept of there being doors and proper four seats where people could go ahead and sit. It was basically very very similar or close to what we basically see as part of our modern version of a car. So here you can see I've gone ahead and done this. Now I'm going ahead and drawing the bonnet. The bonnet as well was, something that was part of those olden days cars, which has, continued to exist in today's car as well. This is basically the windshield I've gone ahead and drawn. They didn't have like particularly large doors. That is, they didn't really have like a window and a door and things like that. It was more like of an open vehicle, like I was saying, sort of like an open Jeep. So this was basically the version of it. So here you can see I've gone ahead and done the back part again, which sort of was like a hood, or the part of like a dicky where you could go ahead and store whatever. And a lot of the structures here was made out of steel. And here finally I'm going ahead and drawing the steering wheel. So as you can see, when you look at it, it looks very, very, very similar to that of a modern day Jeep or a modern day wagon, a modern day sort of army vehicle like a gypsy is what it ends up looking like. And this was, what was created at that point of time, very, very close to a modern car. Now, while you go ahead and continue drawing this, let's move on to the modern day transport that was there. Now, obviously, after the invention of using a crude oil fuel, which is petrol or diesel or gas in terms of running the car, and the concept of the gear system or the gear shift with the clutch, and having the four wheels and having the seats etc happened, the modern day car was invented. Now the modern day car, like we have so many versions of it. Earlier it was cars like Ambassador, cars like Ford, cars like Ferrari, things like that basically existed. But in today's day and age, we have numerous numbers of cars which basically have their own features, from sound systems to a sun deck where you go ahead and open it. You have open cars wherein you don't really have a roof, or you have convertibles wherein you can go ahead and convert the roof to be open or closed based on whatever it is. You have cars that are smaller in size, such as small cars like quids, versus you have cars like SUVs, you have hatchbacks. There are so many different versions basically that have come into play, from it just being sort of like a wheel to a bullock cart, to then being sort of like a three-wheeled auto, to what it is in terms of a Jeep. So modern days cars basically come in various formats. You can obviously go ahead and research of all the kinds that exist in today's day of any category. You have speeding cars, you have cars that basically go in different terrains. You can go ahead and research in numerous ways. Now I obviously can't go ahead and cover everything, but what I basically wanted to go ahead and cover in this was how cars basically, the basic form of a car is actually used in different formats. So for example, a car is not just a car wherein you can carry four people and go, or you can go ahead and transport like a few things here and there. But a car basically became many versions of one thing. That is, a car also became a truck, a car also became a bus, a car also became a race car wherein you could speed and do things. A car also became like a taxi. A car also became sort of like a mode of transport to carry furniture, many things. So the car is basically something that is a very big part of modern day technology, wherein people move around, and we actually have the whole system of transport, traffic, road sense, things like that built around the concept of a basic car. So the first thing that I went ahead and did over there was I drew a small simple car in order to be sort of like an indication of the basic cars that we use from a day-to-day basis, which are private cars. The next thing I'm drawing is basically the representation, sort of like a truck, whether it's a goods and services trucks, whether it's a truck that carries whatever it could be, whether it's water, milk, it could be any form of liquid, things like that that is there. And finally I'm going ahead and also drawing sort of like an open truck, which is front, in the front two people can sit, and in the back you have like an open space wherein you can go ahead and carry plants, you can go ahead and carry pots, you can go ahead and carry steel, you can go ahead and carry any form of metal. So many things that basically exist exist is what that version of the car was. Now look at how cars basically evolved and how it changed into many, many, many things. Now the uses of a car are many, and I do not want to get into that because of the obvious reasons that you can obviously figure that out. Now since we've gone ahead and done such wonderful drawings, I wanted to go ahead and finish off this class talking about some of the amazing, amazing facts of cars that we have basically on around us, all around us, that you might not know. So I want to go ahead and talk to you about 5 major facts in terms of cars. The first fact that I want to go ahead and talk to you about cars is that in today's day and age, there are actually more number of cars present on earth as compared to human beings. So if you actually go ahead and see the record of the number of cars that are there are actually 7.4 billion cars around us. So if you actually assign a car to each person, there are actually going to be more cars. How fascinating is that? Second thing that is really, really, really fascinating about cars is that the car is the most recycled thing. So 97% of a car, so that is whether it's the steel, whether it is basically the mirrors, whether it's the glass, whether it's the carpeting, whether it's the seats, whatever it is, 97% of a car can basically be recycled. So cars basically go ahead and get reprocessed. So whatever things that you use in order to create a car can be repurposed to create another car, or can be repurposed in any other industry. How fascinating again is that? The third fact that I want to go ahead and discuss with you is that there are a lot of parts in a car which you might know. For example, if I have to cover like even five, you have the windshield, you have the steering wheel, you have the seats, you have the clutch, you have the gear, you have so many parts to it. But do you know in total how many parts of a car there are? There are totally 30,000 parts in a car. So think about it, 30,000 parts, whether it's to small screws, to big engines, or to big plates, or whatever it is. There are 30,000 pieces in order to create a car. Think about like how much intricacy or detail goes behind just simply sitting in a car and going anywhere. There are 30,000 pieces to it. The fourth fact that I have for you today is basically about the longest living car. The longest living car till date in history is basically a car that is been there for 82 years. This is basically the Rolls Royce car that was there. It is 82 years currently, and it still runs, which is what is really, really fascinating. And how cool is that? And one fun thing about cars is that, especially if you live in India, you face a lot of traffic jams. So, the longest ever recorded traffic jam that we actually have ever faced in the world is basically was found in 1980 in February 16. It was the longest, traffic jam that was there, and it was actually around the area of Paris where it existed. So think about all of these facts and think about how cool the concept of a car is, from how it has evolved, from what it basically does, how we use it today, and all about these fun, fun, fun facts. Now, I hope you had fun in today's class, because I definitely had a lot of fun in today's class in explaining to you or talking to you about all of the cars that I did talk to you about. In the next class, we're actually going to go ahead and talk about ships. So we're going to go ahead and move on this conversation from bikes to cars to ships, and I hope you're excited for that class as well. As part of today's class, I want you to go ahead and do a little bit of coloring, or I want you to go ahead and do a little bit of sketch pen work in order to finish up those black and white drawings that we've gone ahead and done. So make sure you go ahead and do that. Just a couple of reminders. Firstly, don't go ahead and miss any of your classes. Don't go ahead and miss any of your submissions, whether you've done a good job, bad job, whatever it is. I want you to go ahead and do your submission. I hope you had fun with me as much as I did, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Hi everyone, we are excited to have you here in today's fun-filled learning session at Uolo. Here is a quick look at how you can submit your work after the class. As a first step, go to live.uolo.com. You can use any browser to access this site. On this page, you will see a list of all our classes. Scroll down and you can see the Submit Your Work button. And then you will see a list of the classes that you've last attended, which could, for example, show the dance or craft or science experiment classes you've attended recently. Next, it will show you the list of children whose names are registered in this mobile number. Choose your name from this list to submit your work. For instance, if you are Satvik Kumar, choose that name. And then choose the class for which you would like to make your submission. For example, if you've attended the New Year's Masquerade Party session and you'd like to make the submission for this class, click on the Submit Your Work button below that. And then upload the photo you've taken. Choose the image from your phone and click Submit. You can scroll down and view all your past submissions and see how many of your friends or peers have liked your work. You can also see others' work and like their work to inspire your friends. If you want to showcase your work on social media, that too is very simple. Click on Share, copy the link and post it on Instagram or Facebook or any other platform of your choice. Just a tiny reminder, your submission looks a lot better if you could click a photo in the landscape mode rather than the portrait mode. Do not forget to tag us at Uolo_app